Imagine standing beneath the vast, endless sky, billions of stars, galaxies swirling in the dark, whispering secrets of the universe that stretch beyond our comprehension. The universe is a masterpiece of complexity and wonder. Yet despite this grandeur, the human mind often refuses to see what it does not want to accept. We seek comfort in certainty, in what aligns with our beliefs, and turn away from truths that challenge our worldview. But what if some of the greatest secrets of the cosmos are whispered not just through distant stars, but through the very fabric of planetary cycles, encoded in the alignment of planets and shadow points? What if the universe itself speaks a language, one that we have only just begun to understand? Today, I invite you to explore that possibility, to question what you think you know, and to consider that perhaps the universe's deepest mysteries are waiting to be decoded, if only we are willing to look beyond the limits of our conditioned minds. With 11 consecutive successful predictions of space missions, I have now established a level of statistical significance that is indisputable, one that has not been achieved by anyone in history, nor can it be matched by AI now or in the foreseeable future. I was convinced that science had conceded to astrology because they had neither acknowledged my forecasts nor accepted a clear and professional challenge to test them. All I have ever wanted and still want is to collaborate with the scientific community to build a better future for all of us. But skepticism remained strong, and they had yet to become believers. However, I believe that moment was about to change. With my confidence growing, I set my sights on the forecast for the rescheduled launch of the NASA ISRO GSLV F-16 Mark II satellite, NISAR. ISRO issued a new NOTAM for the launch window between 26 July and 14 August 2025. This wide window was seemingly set to ensure the launch could happen before Prime Minister Modi's Independence Day speech on August 15th, so he could proudly present the success to the nation. A noble goal, but destiny had other plans. While the NOTAM provided a broad time frame, the highly reliable NASA spaceflight data listed a specific scheduled time, the T0, for the launch. It was set to occur from the Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota on Wednesday, the 30th of July, 2025, at 1700 IST. Using this information, I published a detailed intelligence advisory at 5:49 p.m. local time on July 12th, 2025. Nearly 18 days in advance of the scheduled launch. I shared the following intelligence advisory. The launch window at 1700 hours EST on July 30th, 2025 is flagged as highly unfavorable and inauspicious. Based on my analysis, I've outlined the most likely failure modes. I want to be clear, not every anomaly must occur, but these are the risks most likely to manifest in some combination. Given a $1.5 billion investment, proceeding with this launch under these conditions would be reckless. Let's go through the potential failure modes, starting with schedule slips. First, there's a 90% chance of schedule slips. Although we will proceed with the launch countdown this time, a punctual liftoff at 1700 hours Indian Standard Time remains highly unlikely. Meteorological factors, vehicle issues, and range constraints are expected to cause holds, delays, scrubs, or rescheduling. Notably, high-altitude winds, jet stream winds at upper atmospheric levels, can generate turbulence that destabilizes the rocket during critical ascent phases. These winds can lead to guidance errors, structural oscillations, or oscillatory stress, which may require reprogramming of guidance systems or cause launch delays. In extreme cases, they could necessitate holding the launch until conditions improve. Ignoring these warnings risks a watery demise or uncontrolled explosion. A similar schedule slip advisory was issued for the launch of the Blue Origin New Shepard NS-24 rocket, owned by Jeff Bezos. The launch was first put on hold due to cold launch site temperatures and subsequently scrubbed due to issues with ground systems. Next, there's a 90% probability of thermal excursions. Thermal excursions during ascent, MECO, and separation are expected. Although the GSLV's fuels are of exceptional quality, usually an advantage, breaching thermal thresholds can turn this strength into a significant risk. Reaching these critical temperatures could ignite the fuels, leading to thermal runaway, explosive failure, or rapid disassembly. The combination of thermal stress and potential guidance or control system failures greatly increases the likelihood of total failure. A similar thermal excursion warning was issued for the launch of SpaceX Starship 2 and shared with Elon Musk. Unfortunately, it was not considered, resulting in a catastrophic explosion of the LOX tank. Then we have an 80% chance of orbit deviations or deployment failures. Guidance anomalies during separation or burns could cause the satellite to drift from its planned sun-synchronous orbit. Such deviations impair instrument activation and orientation, risking premature re-entry or total loss of control. The upper stage burn will significantly miss the required sun-synchronous orbit plane. Recovery delta V will exceed onboard propellant, dooming the satellite to an unusable orbit or outright loss. A similar orbital insertion anomaly advisory was issued for the launch of the NASA astrobotic lunar lander, Peregrine, which flew on the ULA launch Vulcan rocket. Despite extensive outreach, including to ULA launch CEO Tory Bruno, who is very approachable and I like him, the advisory was not considered for various technical and business reasons, and the launch proceeded as scheduled. Consequently, the predicted anomalies occurred during orbital insertion, resulting in the complete loss of the lunar lander Peregrine. Severe guidance or orbit errors will likely cause a loss of SAR imaging capabilities, up to a 90% chance, making the payload partially or entirely ineffective and leading to mission failure. These errors will impair the satellite's ability to maintain proper orientation and stability of its radar antenna, preventing high-resolution imaging of Earth's surface. As a result, the payload's imaging capabilities will be compromised, rendering high-resolution surface imaging impossible and ultimately causing mission failure. Moving on, there is an 80% chance of communication failures. System errors, software bugs, or guidance system issues during ascent could cause loss of contact with ground stations. Guidance malfunctions, anomalies, or reprogramming may prevent timely corrections or aborts, risking uncontrolled drift, re-entry, or mission failure. These guidance failures, including oscillations or stress, increase the chance of re-entry or disassembly during critical phases. All these potential failure modes highlight how critical the timing, guidance, and thermal conditions are for this launch. Now I want to emphasize that I am ready to suggest an astrologically favorable alternative that satisfies all range, orbit, and payload requirements. Our shared goal remains a flawless NISAR mission that advances science for everyone. The decision ultimately rests with the launch team. I also want to share my proven track record of accurately predicting and influencing outcomes for all these agencies, delivering precise forecasts for their launches, delays, and failures. Whether it's the successful launches of SpaceX Starship 3 and Chandrayaan-3, or warnings about failures like NASA's Peregrine lunar lander and SpaceX Starship 2 explosion, my insights have consistently proven reliable. With that, I wrapped up my advisory and shared it with the world on X. This time, I even produced a video and published it across multiple platforms to reach a broader audience. As one might expect, science did not respond. I made every effort to contact NASA, the NASA JPL, and ISRO, but I never received any reply. Nonetheless, the universe continued to manifest the insights it had shared with me. On July 15, 2025, ISRO issued a new NOTAM confirming the launch window for July 30, 2025. The window extended from July 30th to August 14 and was set to open at 5 p.m. IST. This aligned with the original schedule shown in NASA's spaceflight data, which I had used as the baseline for my advisory. Then, just as I had forecasted, there was a schedule slip. At 5:45 a.m. local time on July 21st, I received a notification from the NASA spaceflight app. The launch had been delayed. It stated that the liftoff time for GSLV Mark II NISAR had been pushed back by 40 minutes. The revised launch time was now scheduled for 5:40 p.m. IST on July 30th, 2025. 9 days before the launch, the universe had handed me the first victory in this forecast. By now, I sensed that ISRO had become aware of my advisory, but their ego and apparent strong dislike for my successful work prevented any acknowledgement. That minor 40-minute delay, 9 days out, was highly suspicious. It bore all the hallmarks of insight from an astrologer, perhaps someone known to ISRO and trusted by them. But astrology is not for everyone. The history and accuracy I've demonstrated under pressure is unmatched, and I have no hesitation in claiming that I am the foremost expert in this area, especially in strategic space missions. It might sound arrogant, but I've earned that confidence through proven results, and I will continue to prove it, just as you will soon see. The truth doesn't care about sounding arrogant. All that matters is that it is true. From there, I began monitoring the weather forecast for the launch time. As destiny would have it, by July 25th, nearly 5 days before launch, rain was predicted at the launch site, with conditions set to begin at 5 p.m. IST. Isn't that incredible? The forecast indicated a temperature of 83 degrees Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy skies with thunderstorms. Cloud cover was predicted at 72%, with a 55% chance of precipitation and wind gusts of up to 20 miles per hour. My alert for potential inclement weather was validated. Despite this looming weather threat, the launch preparations continued, aligning with my forecast. I had predicted we would begin the countdown, and indeed, the countdown commenced at 14:10 hours on July 29, 2025. As part of ISRO's tradition, I also kept an eye out for the chairman's visit to Tirumala Tirupati for blessings, a ritual I now call the toy ceremony. On July 29, 2025, ISRO's chairman made his pilgrimage to Tirupati, visiting not just one, but 3 temples. This, I believe, exemplifies the disconnect. They think that the blessings of Sri Venkateswara will somehow ensure success, despite being forewarned of failure through my advisories rooted in spiritual tradition. The level of hypocrisy is astonishing. They ignore the messages from the same spiritual lineage, yet still hope for divine blessings to save the mission. But the visits to 3 temples, unprecedented in this context, indicated concern. My advisories were firm, clear, and accurate. All they had to do was respond. Simply say hello, acknowledge the insight, and I would have gladly engaged with them. Instead, they risked $1.5 billion, but refused to acknowledge astrology. Usually, they would dismiss such forecasts, but they couldn't do that with me because of the unmatched accuracy I had demonstrated. Finally, at 5:40 p.m. IST, the launch proceeded, and ISRO successfully lifted the rocket, placing the satellite into sun-synchronous orbit. The chairman, Narayanan, quickly claimed it was a precise insertion at 747 kilometers. The public, eager for certainty, accepted that claim as gospel, and soon I faced ridicule for the successful launch, with the schedule slip conveniently ignored. I stood firm, stating that this was only the initial stage and that detailed telemetry data was needed to determine the real outcome. Soon after, NASA's chief scientist for the NISAR mission, Dr. Gerald Bawden, contradicted ISRO's claim. He reported the satellite was inserted at approximately 737 kilometers, about 10 kilometers off from the planned 747-kilometer orbit. By international standards, this 10-kilometer variance is within acceptable limits, given the complexity of such operations. However, it's also clear that the satellite was not inserted exactly at 747 kilometers, as claimed. Further analysis of telemetry data revealed the satellite had begun losing altitude immediately after insertion. The data shows sharp drops in both apogee and perigee altitudes. Apogee altitude started near 747 kilometers on July 30th, then sharply dropped to around 745 kilometers by August 1st, stabilizing around 745.5 kilometers by August 13. Perigee altitude began at about 731 kilometers, then fell to approximately 727 kilometers, remaining around 727 to 728 kilometers through August 13. The sudden decline coincided with a spike in space weather activity, high KP values, around August 1st to 2nd, suggesting that increased solar and geomagnetic disturbances likely caused temporary orbital decay. This behavior aligns with typical satellite responses to space weather, yet the overall change was about 1.5 kilometers, within the expected range and consistent with a typical orbit insertion. This data supports the conclusion that the satellite's orbit was not stable. The ongoing efforts by NASA and ISRO have been to stabilize it during the 90-day calibration phase, but the situation worsened. The next major milestone was the deployment of the radar boom assembly. Despite the silence from NASA and ISRO, A short video from NASA JPL celebrated the success of this deployment. But the silence was telling. No live streams, no detailed updates, just a limited celebration. I congratulated them, not out of malice, but because I believe I could help save millions. My intention has always been to engage and provide value. Yet their refusal to even respond with a simple hello felt insulting. In the days that followed, I continued monitoring telemetry. For a while, the satellite remained stable, and it seemed my forecast impact was limited. But then, on September 19th, 2025, everything changed. The telemetry data indicated a dramatic anomaly. Within 12 hours, the satellite's apogee suddenly jumped from about 748 kilometers to over 1,219 kilometers, a 471-kilometer increase. Simultaneously, the perigee plunged from roughly 746 kilometers down to 193 kilometers, an over 550-kilometer drop. Remember, the planned science orbit was a mean altitude of 747 kilometers, with an acceptable variance of plus or minus 20 kilometers. Yet the apogee and perigee readings were off by approximately 500 kilometers. This is an enormous anomaly, and both NASA and ISRO have remained silent. Presumably, they are working behind the scenes to remediate the situation. But the data, recovery delta V, and available onboard propellant strongly suggest that the satellite has moved into an unusable orbit or has been lost entirely. The severity of this event validates my earlier warnings about orbital misplacement and guidance errors. Warnings they chose to ignore. These errors will severely impair the satellite's ability to perform high-resolution surface imaging, rendering its payload practically useless and ultimately leading to mission failure. Given the 90-day period ISRO has to commission the satellite, they may remain silent until that window closes, until October 30th, while working behind the scenes. Remember, this is a 1.5 billion-plus mission, and I issued explicit, detailed advisories predicting its failure. Yet they ignored and ridiculed me until the universe delivered its final verdict. And so, the universe has spoken. Its truth has been revealed in the silent data, in the depths of space, and in the relentless march of reality. No matter how much we deny or ignore, the cosmos continues to reveal its secrets through patterns, through signals, through the undeniable echoes of what is. The question is, will we finally listen? Will we open our minds and accept that there are forces beyond our immediate sight, beyond our current understanding? Or will we continue to turn away, blinded by arrogance and disbelief? In the end, the universe doesn't care for our doubts or our certainties. It simply speaks. And those willing to listen, those brave enough to decode its language, will discover that the greatest mysteries are not hidden in the dark alone, but in the truths we refuse to see. The stars are whispering, the planets are speaking, the universe is waiting. Are we ready to listen?